is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into That Football Show, presented by our friends at Holiday Distillery in Ben Holiday, bottled in Bond Bourbon. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Matty V, Matt Verderame. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine. I've recovered from Memorial Day weekend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Look, this might be the most off-season show that we've had. And I know that we started this podcast in the midst of the off-season, but, we had drafts to talk about. We had free agency to talk about. But this podcast today is probably going to be the most off-season podcast that we might have. Well, look, I might be putting the cart before the horse there. Maybe we'll maybe we'll luck into something to talk about. But, look, just not a lot going on in the NFL schedule right now, and it's probably going to get even worse once, mandatory minicamp for the Kansas City Chiefs ends on June 13th. You don't have a whole lot of football going on until, late July, when they do report for training camp. So right now, a little bit of a barren time. We appreciate you guys sticking with us, listening in to today's podcast, but just not a lot going on right now, Matt.
There's not, although I will tell you that I personally appreciate that there's not a lot going on right now, because that's a break from when everything's going on all the time.
Yes.
And apparently the NFL can't stand that there's nothing going on right now. So they're thinking about getting rid of OTAs because nobody cares. And mandatory minicamp, and just having like a 9-month training camp that leads into the season. This was reported on, I believe it was on Tuesday, by Tom Pelissero. So, the NFL might do that. That'd be fun. That'd be interesting.
Reading from NFL.com here, the NFL Players Association is considered pushing for changes to the offseason workout program, as you did allude to, Matt. The NFLPA is working to finalize a proposal to overhaul the offseason starting as soon as 2025, eliminating voluntary on-field work in the spring in favor of a longer training camp ramp-up, with players reporting mid-June to early July. That was as reported by Tom Pelissero on Tuesday. A formal plan is expected this summer.
Great.
Every former player that I have talked to, Matt, I wonder if this is the same experience to you, has never spoke too highly of training camp. So I don't know why the Players Association is saying, we need more training camp.
There's so much about this that's just dumb, which is why it'll probably happen.
Right.
For starters, let's just be clear. All right, OTAs, they're not voluntary; they're mandatory. I understand they're actually voluntary, and yes, if you're Travis Kelce, they're voluntary. For the rest of the world, they're mandatory. They have minicamp, which is also mandatory. Guess what? All this stuff is basically guys jogging around. It's shorts, it's T-shirts, it's helmets. Big deal. You roll in, you come out of there, you're done, you move on. I don't understand all this nonsense about, hey, you know what we need now? We need to report on June 20th. That's what we need. So we can have 2.5 months of training camp. If I was a Chiefs player and I knew that I had to go sit in a dorm room for 2.5 months, I would, honest to God, pick it. I'd be like, I'm not going. You can't make me go. There's no way in hell I'm doing this. For a lot, first of all, I'll tell you right now, if they do that, I do believe that's the end of the Chiefs going away from camp, because players are going to lose their minds. And so, by the way, so will executives and coaches. They're not going to want to be there.
Right.
They're not going to want to be there. And that's no offense to St. Joe's or anything like that, but the reality is you have families back home. Nobody's going to want to sit there and leave their families for 2.5 months. So, that's done. Maybe there's a world where the Chiefs would do, a portion of it up there and then come home and do the rest of it in Kansas City. But, the Chiefs have the facilities. Now, the bad news is for Clark Hunt, he's going to have to pay to upgrade them. And that might be an issue. Might get another proposal for Jackson County. But, look, training camp existed in the 50s and 60s and 70s because guys were plumbers in the offseason. And they gained 30 pounds, and they were chain smoking. And, they had to come back because they had to work themselves into shape. Guys aren't showing up to camp now 30 pounds over. They don't have another job. They're going down to Exos, and they're going down to all these places like a Pete Barbarito down in Florida. Well, that's what they're doing. And they're working out and they're getting themselves from 8% body fat to 7.5% body fat. Nobody's going home and just knocking down Big Macs left and right. Like, that's not how the NFL works. So I think it's crazy. I think a lot of these players with kids, a lot of executives and coaches with kids, but they care about having late June, early July off. That's when the kids are out of school. That's family time. That's vacation time. I've had general managers flat out tell me, hey, look, man, if I don't go back to you for 2 weeks, I'm sorry. Like, my wife is telling me, like, I got unplugged for 2 weeks. This is family time. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to love giving up family time so they can watch some guys jog around for 2 months in training camp. How much training do you need? I mean, it's crazy.
It is. And this is under new leadership in July of 2023. The NFLPA is. They sought feedback from players on adjusting the offseason schedule. And according to Pelissaro, majority of the players support the changes. I don't know how much I'm truthfully buying that. The current offseason workout program is collectively bargained, which is the voluntary 9-week offseason broke down into 3 phases. We're in phase 3 currently as we sit right now. Phase 1 is meetings. Phase 2, on-field drills, individuals. It's just indie drills. And then finally, phase 3, you can do the 11-on-11, 9-on-7, 7-on-7 type deal. But most of these clubs that does run, as you mentioned, from like late April to like early June, that period. And then they do have that month-ish off from mid-June to late July.
Yeah.
And it does seem like it would be less than ideal for a lot of the operations staff as well, a part of these teams. Like that's going to be a large chunk, especially like, think about this too. If you're playing in the Super Bowl and you're the Chiefs and you've been playing in as many possible games as you can possibly play in as an NFL team, that off season, I'm gonna put in air quotes there, becomes so much shorter. Like you barely have any time off between, especially if you're on the operations staff. If you think about the front office, if you think about everyone really involved with a football team, if you are preparing a football team and getting everything involved with the football team all the way up until middle of February. Well, when this becomes an 18-game schedule and they add an extra bye and they push the Super Bowl back a week to be the weekend before President's Day, they're going to push that back another week. And then you're looking at a very small window between like the draft and then training camp starting this new proposal with a mid-June start of training camp going all the way until practically September. When the regular season does start. The Chiefs kick off on September 5th this year. So it's like, it just seems like a very short-sighted proposal in terms of like, oh, we don't have to do the voluntary OTAs. Let's not do that. But then like what they're trading off is not better than what it is now. I don't know. I do find it hard to believe that a lot of players have supported this, because a lot of the former players on Twitter have like tweeted about it and they're like, this sounds awful. Like, wow, why would players want to do this? I don't know if I've seen a former player in the social space who speaks out, who, normally talks about NFL current events, support it. It seems very odd to me that it's being reported that there's a lot of current players that are like this.
I feel like that got leaked out by like the union head who was like, I need to get support. So we're gonna leak out that I already have it. Why the hell would you want to do this to your player? Like, what benefit is there? It's first of all, okay, OTAs are the biggest waste of time on the face of the earth, unless you are a rookie, but you're a team that has either a new coach or a new quarterback. You have that.
That's another wrinkle that adds into this. Like, it's going to be harder for the younger players, the rookies, to integrate into teams. Like, obviously, the current players don't give a rat's ass about that right now, and they would rather that to be the case. Truthfully, the current players would, but I mean, that's going to be another wrinkle that adds to this. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. You're right. It's a good point. Also, like, once this thing goes to 18 games, Joel, in the next couple of years, you're going to be at 2 preseason games. So less reps, less time, all this stuff. But I just, again, why? Like, what? Who is asking for this? It's like if baseball was like, let's not tempt baseball to do something dumb. Like, hey, what do you think about spring training starting on Christmas? Like, can we do that? Can we push it back and get, another 90 at-bats in the spring? I mean, who needs all this? I did a training camp tour last year. Let me tell you, I did not see one guy who I was like, man, that dude's out of shape. Like, and all the teams I saw, I'm like, yeah, they're going to suck. If they could have used another month, they'd still suck. They still weren't good. Like, what? You think a month last year was going to fix, like, Kenny Pickett or Daniel Jones? When all of a sudden they were going to come out and play like Mahomes? Like, what is the point? I mean, my whole thing, look, if you really want to get back, because I know that the next talking point out of this, I guarantee you, is somebody in the NFL who wants this thing to go through is going to leak out to Schefter or Rapport. They're going to say, quality tackling's been bad. And if we have an extra month, we get the quality tackling up, which, by the way, is total bullshit because they're not going to tackle. But if you want to actually try to fix that, get rid of OTAs and minicamp. Don't extend training camp. Maybe you want to extend it a week, fine, but like don't really need to extend it. And then put in there that you can increase the amount of hitting in camp. Like, you want to fix it, that'll fix it. But nobody actually wants to do that because nobody wants to get hit any more than they need to, which is understandable considering the schedule's about to be 18 games. So I get all that. Just accept it. I mean, half these teams don't even play their guys in the preseason anymore. They don't even care. I mean, the younger coaches, most of them, those guys don't even see the field in preseason. So the other part of this, and I'll go off my soapbox here, but like, what are you going to do with an extra month at camp? What are you going to do? You're not going to hit. What are you going to do? Like, you're going to sit around and run around in shorts and a T-shirt? That's OTAs. You just recreated OTAs. Like, what are you doing? It makes no damn sense. It's like they just want to shape it. And, the NFL will never say this, but it's the truth. They want to do this because they know that once you're in training camp, you got to pay attention. And so it's like, can we get training camp back to the middle of June, and then they're going to extend the season, and they're going to move the draft into early May, and they're going to move the schedule release into mid-May, and then you're going to have like a month where nothing's going on. That's what's going to happen. And then they're going to go, because that's what they want, because they want to extend out the season, which I think an off season is a good thing in a lot of fans, like not just for players, but like for you want to miss it a little bit. Mm-hmm. If it's always there, I don't know that that's a good thing. I feel like that's a bad thing.
I agree with you, but I think that it's an interesting proposal. What you said there did kind of strike me. What are they going to do in those extra weeks that they have in? They're just going to do OTAs later in the year. That's literally all that they're going to do. And I don't know. It's probably going to get passed just because of this is a PA resolution, I guess would be considered.
Oh, sure.
It's going to get passed through. It's kind of dumb. It is kind of dumb. But anyway, let's take a break. And when we get back, Chiefs didn't make any headlines of the nightly news for a week.
Good. That's a win.
That's a win. We'll talk about that. And the wide receiver market just got another addition into the payday. Nico Collins gets a payday. We'll talk about that after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
I've been under the weather, Matt, a little bit. I don't know if I sound a little stuffed up, but I've been hammering cough drops, taking the Dayquil. Got a little bit of a cold after Memorial Day weekend. And at first I thought I was like, maybe I just drank too much, but it's like stuck around. I'm just like, well, no, it wasn't that. I actually got a cold. In the middle of summer, or the start of summer, getting a cold is a little weird, but nonetheless,
it's not good.
That's where I'm at.
It's not good. Yeah. I do not have a cold, thankfully.
That's good.
I went to Chicago for Memorial Day weekend, which is about an hour from my house. Used to live down there with my now wife and girlfriend at the time. Went down there, had the old anniversary weekend, so I figured, what the hell.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, 7 years she split up with me. The kids went to the in-laws, so that was nice. Got to go down there. Saturday, couldn't have had a better weather. I mean, it was absolutely just picture perfect. Sunday it poured like none other, but we were leaving anyway, so it didn't really matter. Tell you what, though, Sunday went for brunch. Very rarely do I have brunch. But I figured, what the hell? I'm in Chicago, and I don't feel like waking up in time for breakfast, so let's do brunch. Brunch is a wild experience, man. Like,
oh yeah.
I went out, and I did what you're supposed to do. Like, I got like, I don't know, eggs Benedict, essentially, with like a million other things mixed into it.
Right.
And they're like, listen, it's like $25 for eggs Benedict, but it comes with a free like morning cocktail. I had enough alcohol the night prior. I'm like, I can't do this. So I was like, listen, can I just get an orange juice? They're like, yeah, sure. It's $7. It's like, it's $7 for a fucking orange juice? Like, yep. Like, you're going to bring out the whole carton? Like, no, it's just a small glass. Like, okay.
No refills either. You don't get
no refills. No. Yeah. So I got $7 of what I'm pretty sure was orange juice concentrate. The food was excellent. However, the more important meal was the day prior. It took 2.5 hours to drive an hour to get into Chicago because of all the traffic getting into from Memorial Day, which look was fine. Kind of factored it in. Parked the car. I'd love to shout the name out of this bakery, but I can't remember for the life of me. Down at River North, and it's famous for its chocolate chip cookies. So my wife, who loves everything baked, like all baked goods, my wife, she got this chocolate chip cookie. Well, I saw one that was peanut butter chocolate chip, and I'm like, man, that's me. So I get this thing, and I'm looking at it in the case. It didn't look that big from like kind of afar. I'm like, I'll get 2 of them. And I was like, nah, you know what? I'll just get one. Like, I hadn't eaten all day for the record. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going to get lunch. And I'm like, skip it. We got dinner reservations. Supposed to be hungry for dinner. Get up there. Get this cookie. This cookie is legitimately like half the size of my head. I was like, wow. Thank God didn't get 2 of them. Was so good, though. Housed the entire thing in like 2 minutes. Was phenomenal. Then went down, sat by the river walk, the river, the little walk down there. Had a couple beers, some chips and guac. People watched, which I got to tell you, that's something. Like, I don't know how you feel about this, because I know you have a dog. I've had dogs my whole life. So I'm coming at this from a place that I am a dog lover, like wholeheartedly. Since the day I was born, I've had dogs. I don't understand what it is with people that treat their dogs like they're their kids. It scares me, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, some dude walked by us and had 3 dogs in a baby stroller.
Yeah, no.
Hats.
Nah.
What the fuck are we doing? It's a dog. And then you have these people it's Mother's Day, and they'll post like on Instagram like a picture of them and like their 2 dogs. No, like, I'm a mom. It's like, no, you're not. You're actually not. Like, I can't drop my kid off at the kennel. You're not a mom. I'm sorry. Like, you're a dog owner, which is cool. And like, listen,
great.
Again, been there my whole life. Love him. Second I moved to Chicago, bought a dog, took, from a shelter. He's awesome. Mr. Duke. Like, big fan.
Great name.
Mr. Yeah. His real name's Hank, but we go by Mr. Duke. Like, great dog. But like, what are we talking about? Like, you're not a mom, you're not a dad because you have a dog. And then on top of that, like, stop dressing up your dog. Stop putting your dog in a baby stroller. Like, you don't have to take your dog to the restaurant.
Right.
Like, there are some people who have like allergies and whatnot. And then barks and yips when it sees another dog. And then like, but these people are so wildly defensive of it. They're like, no, it's my child. It's like, no, it's not actually. It's not. Like, you can leave your dog out, which, by the way, is probably where I would prefer to be right now. Like, you can leave your dog at home. I don't know how you feel. It drives me out of my mind.
No, I agree. My dog is, I just leave her at home, She gets wildly anxious being out in public. So we're just like, all right, fine. You can just stay home. So, like, it's better for her just to stay at home. So, I mean, I don't get it. But there's a lot of things in this world I don't get, man. There really is.
We're going to touch on all of them over the course of next year. Especially during the offseason. But I mean, I had a great time in Chicago. Although I will say, and I got the weirdest, I'm just going to say it. The weirdest thing I saw, the weirdest thing I saw was a guy walked by. I'm guessing he's probably 50, late 40s, like in that range. He walked by with a collar on. And at first I was like, oh man, must screw his neck up, like medical collar. And then he sat down. I was like, no, that collar has a lock on the back of it, and it's leather. And then some other dude walked by in just full on like dodgeball bondage submissive gear. I was just like, hey man, listen, you do what you got to do. I'm not looking to shame anybody, but like,
right.
That's an aggressive move. Like a full-blown collar with a lock on it with like a hook. I'm like, that you're committed at that point.
It's a conscious decision to wear that out in public.
It is. And like, bro, it's like 80 degrees. It's a leather collar. It's got to be hot.
Right.
I'm sitting there and like, listen, didn't talk to him. Like he was sitting like way across the other way. But I was like, I got to give it, like, in some ways, almost admired it. I was like, you know what, man? You're all in.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. So, like, forgive me if somebody out there's like, you're saying it's weird. Hey, look, man, if I'm 35 years old and I've never seen it before, it's at least different. And I didn't know how to. I was like, man, I thought it was like a medical thing. I was like, oh man, this really hurt his neck. And then I was like, no,
it's not medical.
And then like the other guy rolled in, and I was like, man. And then I started thinking, like, is this a convention? Like, is like the whole group coming? Like, but then no, it was. And they seemed to have a fine time, but I just kept thinking to myself. All I kept thinking was, man, that collar's got to be hot as hell in the summer. Like,
yeah,
like, but to each their own. But yeah, Chicago, sitting there, people watching for an hour was something. Really got me busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have not yet made the trek up there to Chicago. It's kind of a shame, but I need to get up there. I've heard the parking in that town is awful.
The parking is very difficult. There's not a lot of like lots, so you have to park on the street, which depending on which area you're in, you can do, but then you've got to pay. It's all metered crap. But then there's some areas where they're residential streets. And you can't park there unless you have a permit. So that becomes a crap show. Now, I will say, I always laugh when I go in there, and like, we parked in a parking garage overnight, and it was like $45. You go to New York City, you park for like an hour, it's $40. I was like, this is a great deal. My wife's like, this is terrible, $45. I'm like, $45? I expected it to be like $200. I know going to a Yankees game 15 years ago to park, it was $40. I can't even imagine what it is now. That's a baseball team. 81 home games a year. It was, but it's, I'll say this, man. Chicago, I feel like it's a really bad route nationally. Like, Chicago's a lot of fun. Like, the north side and downtown specifically. I'm not against the south side. I just haven't spent a whole hell of a lot of time down there. Like, I lived on the north side when I was there, and everything I needed to go to was on the north side. I loved it. I lived there for like 4 years. I had a great time. I think Chicago, the one thing that's nice is it's so many neighborhoods. Yeah. It's different in that regard. That part's nice. They all have their own little vibe. That's cool.
Does it? I need to go check that out. But look, if the NFL proposes this new offseason, I won't even have time to go even think about entertaining going.
No, I might as well just give up my family.
Yeah.
The good news is I can do a training camp tour for 80 days. I can just, hey, you know what?
You can go to every team.
Every team twice. Here we go. I'm gonna start up in Foxborough, and I'm gonna end on the Santa Monica Pier, and then we're just gonna work our way back. I guess there's no rush at that point. Like, I can just call up a team, big any day this month works. What day? What day you want me to come on up there? Like, oh my God. Can you imagine, like, listen, we're talking about the Chiefs here, right? I mean, can you imagine being in St. Joe, weather-wise, for 2 months? I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, you're going to have to move some of that indoors if for no other reason, because guys are going to be absolutely burnt out to hell. Like, every day. I remember going on that tour, and like, you go to Minnesota, it's nice and, pretty breezy outside, 65. You go to St. Joe's, it's 8:15 in the morning, and they're like, guess what? 95% humidity. You want to watch practice? You're going to earn it. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Somebody just passed out in the bleachers from heat exhaustion at 8:28. Like, it's a little bit different in St. Joe's than it is if you're practicing in, like, Latrobe. Okay? It just is.
Yeah. St. Joe also doesn't have the, how do I put this, amenities that a lot of other cities do have. Look, I don't think there's a ton of teams now that go travel for training camp. I think there's 7, right?
Very few. Cowboys.
If that. There might not even be 7.
No, I think it's like 5 or less at this point.
It's a dying breed, truthfully, of teams that travel there. But I do think you made a good point about it being, they'll probably be done with that. I can't imagine that, as much as Andy Reid does want and does love to go away for training camp, it would be hard to imagine to get people on board with going away to St. Joe for 2 months.
Yes.
That hard sell. But the Chiefs they drafted a wide receiver in the first round, which is seeming to be a smart financial decision because there was another wide receiver contract added to the market as the Texans and Nico Collins agreed on a 3-year, $72.5 million extension that included $52 million guaranteed. Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissaro reported that on Tuesday. Dan Orsini was actually the first reported on that story. The deal has a max value of $75 million. First thoughts on this, Matt. I'll tell you mine. I saw that number come through. It was, I think, 24 years what Diana Orsini reported. She didn't report the total number.
Right.
She said 3-year for $25 million. Obviously, you can, or $24 million. You can do the math from there. But I saw that and I thought, whoa, that's a lot of money for Nico Collins. But then as you think about it a little bit more and you see the other numbers that are out there for other wide receivers, I think it makes a little bit of sense for both sides.
That makes a lot of sense because Stephon Diggs has 1 year left on his deal, despite the fact that when they traded for him, he had like 4 years left in his deal. Time flies. So Diggs has 1 year left. Noah Brown is more of a depth receiver. And then you have Tank Dell, who's on a rookie deal, so he's cheap for 3 more years. I mean, if you're Houston, why not pay him? You know, what the hell? And also, this is what you do when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You pay him. Doesn't matter. Pay Danielle Hunter for 2 years. Pay Nico Collins for 3 years. Pay Stephon Diggs for 1 year. Pay Dalton Schultz for 3 more years. Pay Joe Mixon for a couple more years on an extension I'll never understand. Pay all these guys. Because guess what? You know what none of those contracts do? None of those contracts overlap with when C.J. Stroud's going to be expensive. They don't care. They don't care. Like, the Texans have the ability right now to do this. And they should do it. You know, but I think, look, Collins is a guy who last year really came into his own. I mean, before that was not somebody who you were like, oh, he'd be an extension candidate for 3 and 75. A couple of years under 500 yards, just under, but under 500 yards, nothing crazy. And then last year in 15 games goes for 1297 and 8 touchdowns. Like, that is the power of upgrading from Davis Mills to C.J. Stroud. And that is the power of Bobby Slowick. And look, I mean, this is where contracts are going for receivers. If you're any good, you're getting 25 mil plus. That's it. You're going to get it. And I think, Brandon Ayuk, look, he's going to get paid. Brandon Ayuk's going to get paid in the upper 20s to 30. CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, those guys are probably going to reset the market. I mean, T. Higgins, he's probably going to get somewhere in the high 20s. Jamar Chase is another guy, probably going to reset the market. By the way, that offense at LSU, not bad. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Joe Burrow, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Say whatever you want about him. He's a first-round pick as a running back. Like, not bad.
Yeah.
But when you look at, the receiver market, it's only exploding more and more and more every year. I mean, it's just continuing to go up. So I think realistically, when you look at these contracts, you look at the Nico Collins and go, wow, 3 and 72 and change. I mean, that's standard practice right now. If you're going to re-sign a guy like that, I mean, he's not going to sign for any less than he shouldn't. So, look, the highest paid receiver in the league on average salary is AJ Brown, $32 million. Mm-hmm. And then I think Devontae Adams is the highest total package for a contract.
You'd be correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
What is it? 140, 135, something like that.
140. Yeah.
140. Yeah. So I mean, look, Justin Jefferson's probably sitting there going, you know what? I want 35 a year, and I want it for 5 years. I want 175 at 30. Does he get there? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, other than quarterbacks, at this juncture, the most expensive players on the field are edge rushers and receivers.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at, I was just crunching the numbers when you brought that up about Nico Collins, where his contract ranks with wide receivers, 10th overall in value, 7th overall in AAV. So he's, in terms of numbers, right there with it. And I think it does. Like, it makes sense for the Texans to do this right now. Like, why not pay him? Like, why not have that security for your young quarterback, for C.J. Stroud? And you mentioned it doesn't overlap with when they need to pay C.J. Stroud either. I think it's a great choice on both sides to do it. And he had a really good season last year. Granted, it was only one season, but it was still a pretty darn good season. And you made the great point of he had no one at quarterback. He had Davis Mills as his quarterback, which that was an experience. The Davis Mills experience was definitely something. But I think that for my first reaction to be like, whoa, like that seems like a lot of money for Nico Collins, to then to kind of, as I like digested it, to be like, well, you know what? 10th overall in total, 7th AAV for 3. I think you can swallow that pretty easily, pretty quickly once you digest it.
Once all these guys I just mentioned get paid, he's going to be like 50.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just how this works. I remember when Mahomes signed, and like, I think people saw the long-term part of it is like a huge break for the Chiefs. People were like, man, $45 million a year, but Daniel Jones now makes $40 million a year. Yeah. Like, what are we even talking about? I mean, it's just, things come at you quickly in the NFL. That's just the way it works. It's like in the NBA, when some guy signs like a $40 million a year contract, and like, oh my God. And then it's like, granted, in the NBA, sometimes you say that and you're like, yeah, you say it 5 years later too. But, but like then you look, 3 years later and Kyle Kuzma is signing the Supermax. You're like, wow, okay. I guess 40 was a bargain. Like, if you believe in the player, you're always better off signing them early. Always. Always, 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 always. You're better off signing them early. You just are, man. Like, the longer you wait, the only time that's not true is if it's a much older player or if a guy unfortunately gets really hurt. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Because otherwise, you're going to get screwed. Like, I remember when the Chiefs, years ago, Justin Houston, they were negotiating with him, and they're like, why don't you show us what you got one more year? And he had 22 sacks. He's like, all right, well, looks like you're going to get paid more than we thought. I did the same thing with Eric Berry. I'd argue that Veach kind of did the same thing this year with Chris Jones. Now, I will say, I think to be fair to Brett Veach, that was a little bit more on Chris Jones's agent side of the coin. But, yeah, man, the longer you wait with this stuff, typically speaking, the more it bites you in the ass if you're the franchise.
So I want to bring this conversation back to the Chiefs, too. As I mentioned at the top of just before we started talking about this, Chiefs drafted a wide receiver in the first round. You're starting to see the price. Yesterday's price is not today's price when it comes to wide receivers. Like, that number is quickly going up. If you're the Chiefs and you have a quarterback that's, has a pretty big cap hit, he has a pretty big cap number, seeming to be more and more important to draft a wide receiver in the first or second round of the draft. It just seems like it's going to be more paramount for the Chiefs.
Look, I don't think it's a coincidence that in the last 3 years they've taken a receiver in the second round, another receiver in the second round, receiver in the first round. Like,
yeah,
you're at this point, you're out of your mind. If you're a franchise that has any need, a quarterback, edge rusher, or receiver, and you're not taking those guys early.
Yeah,
that's what you should be doing. Because when you look around, what are the most expensive positions in football? Those three things. And I would argue quarterback's different because obviously if you have a great quarterback, you'll keep that guy till he's 50, okay? But like a receiver and edge rusher, if you got a guy for 5 years on a first round deal, you have to make a real decision if you want to give that guy a second contract, because you're talking about major money. Whereas like you could be, hey, you know what? I could draft another guy in the first round. If I'm right, I'm cheap for another 5 years here. And then I can build up other places. That's why, like right now, not that it's one of those three positions, although I'll give an example. George Karlaftis. The Chiefs are saving a ton of money. Rashee Rice, forget for a moment his off-field nonsense. They're saving a ton of money. If Xavier Worthy's really good, they're saving a ton of money. And the fourth position I'd throw in there is tackle. If Kingsley Suamataia is good, or Wanya Morris for that matter, the Chiefs are saving a fortune at those positions. And that's how you can pay. You can pay a guy like Nick Bolton, off-ball linebacker, or Joe Tooney, who they gave the biggest contract in NFL history to at the time for interior alignment, or Creed Humphrey. Maybe they keep Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey because they're like, you know what? We're saving a ton of money on Suamataia. You can do those things. You hit on McDuffie, which is a premium position. You can maybe pay Justin Reed one more contract because you're not paying Trent McDuffie for 3 more seasons. Like,
yeah,
that's where you are able, they paid Chris Jones at D tackle, which is a position that is becoming more expensive because those guys are becoming more and more as pass rush threats.
Mm-hmm.
But man, like, if you could hit on premium positions, and that's why, as much as I respect, certain guards that have come out in recent years early, unless you're getting a guy like that guy's a Hall of Fame level tackle or a Hall of Fame level guard, why are you drafting a guard in the first round? Why are you drafting a running back in the first round? Why? You're getting the benefit out of it. Like, the cost benefit is every bit as important. That's why linebackers aren't going in the first round anymore. Like, which, by the way, speaking of extensions, I look forward to the discourse here and everywhere else when Nick Bolton signs an extension. That is going to be like the Chiefs fans' version of like the battle of all time, right? When it's just half the fan base is like, this is great, and the other half of the fan base just loses its mind that he got paid what he got paid. That'll be fun. That'll be good content.
Has there been a player more decisive or divisive, I should say? Divisive is the word I was looking for there, than Nick Bolton? Because he's incredibly polarizing in terms of like where people either really love him or you like really don't like him.
Trying to think.
I don't know if the ones that come to mind, like Dan Sorensen was pretty, but a lot of people didn't like Dan Sorensen.
I feel like Dan Sorensen, people loved him and then very quickly didn't.
Yeah.
He just fell off a cliff. I'm trying to think of somebody who you'd be like, that guy. No, I don't think so, man. Not in my recollection. I mean, I think if he had played in the social media era and like the era now with the way running backs are treated, Larry Johnson would have been interesting.
Whoa. Yeah.
Like, just based on some of his stuff, but also he was a great player, but he's also a running back, and there's some injury. That would have been fascinating to see how fans would have felt about him. I mean, Alex Smith, I guess, was kind of like that.
Yeah, he was pretty yeah. People's opinions were pretty polarizing of him. Polarized. Yeah, a lot of that has to do with just social media, I think, too, as well.
Yeah.
The age we play in, but...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then there are other players like Savvy Piscatelli, who everybody just agreed on.
Ben Neiman.
Yeah, Ben Neiman. Super Bowl champion, Ben Neiman.
Some respect on his name.
That's right. Did make a play in that Super Bowl, too. Just smack Jimmy G down in the fourth quarter. No, I mean, the thing with Bolton is when he gets paid, no matter what the contract is, you are going to have people who are just completely on board. So, like, he's a great tackler, great in the phone booth. Spags loves him, smart, all that stuff, right? And then you're going to have the other group that he can get paid $10 million a year, and people are just going to be livid. Like, why did they sign him? Already have Chanel, already have Tranquil. He can't rush the passer. He can't cover. Where do we'll just stake our claim here on the way out. Where do you stand on the Nick Bolton? Do you want him extended? Not want him extended? Where are you?
I have been historically hard on Nick Bolton. Look, I'm a Mizzou guy, and I'm a big Mizzou fan. So maybe I'm a little bit harder on him than I should be, right? And I recognize, I think in the recent years that, look, Nick Bolton is what he is, right? He's not going to be a Willie Gay in pass coverage. He's not going to be a Fred Warner in pass coverage. Like he's not going to.
No,
he's not going to. He's not going to cover running backs, right? He's a good Mike linebacker. Will tackle what's in front of him. Moving east to west, a little bit sketchy, but can get it done when he has to. Really good north-south mover, great tackler. Look, I get that. I understand that. I think that's very valuable. I would be okay with an extension depending on the money, right? I think it's just going to depend on that. I also don't think I'll be upset if he does get a very high-paid contract either, just because it's one of those things where we're like, well, you know what? Spags really loves him. They think he's valuable to the defense. Fine. I'll be all right with it, I guess. I can make peace with it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Would I necessarily do it if I was Brett Veach? Probably not. But I could probably easily cope and make peace with it if it does. Once it does happen, I should say.
Yeah, I fall into the area of it's fine. Like, it's not. I'm not going to be jumping for joy. Look, my concern with Nick Bolton is his first year in the league. He had 112 tackles. He had 11 tackles for loss. Second year in the league, he had 180 tackles. Franchise record, pair of sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. Now, I know he played 8 games last year. We factored that in. It was a wrist injury. It's not like one of these things where he's injury prone. I get a wrist injury, fine. It's 60 tackles, which, okay, so you extrapolate that out. He probably would have had like 130, which, like, okay, fine. He had 1 tackle for loss last year.
Wow.
And he hit the quarterback once in 8 games. So now we're going to go to Leo Chenal's numbers. Leo Chenal did not even approach playing half the snaps. Played 17 games. He had 8 tackles for loss. He hit the quarterback 7 times.
Wow.
And I know there are probably people who are like, well, you know, he plays a different position. That's true. Let's go to Drew Tranquill. Drew Tranquill started 8 games last year. It's 7 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Yeah, let's really go down the line here. Let's see, who would have been their first guy off the bench last year as a linebacker? Christensen?
Yeah.
That's probably there. Okay. Cole Christensen. 5 games, no statistics defensively. Right? So the drop off is real, folks. Okay. The drop
look at
off.
Willie.
What?
Did you look at Willie Gay?
Willie Gay. Let's see. Willie Gay played 16 games last year, started in 15. 4 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, 58 total tackles and a sack. So, like, this is where I land on Nick Bolton. Like, if he plays the way he played in 2022, I extend that, man. You know? By the way, to be fair to Nick Bolton, they don't win the Super Bowl that year without Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton was the best player on the field in that game. Yeah. Like, period. Not even close. He almost had 2 touchdowns that night. If he plays like he did in the back half of his rookie year and 2022, I'm good with it, man. Pay him. Right. Give him 15 a year. I don't care. But like last year, and I know he missed time. I get all that. The counting stats don't bother me as much, like with the tackles. Fine. Bro, you got to have more than 1 tackle for loss. Like, you can't cover anybody. You need to be downhill. If you're giving me 8, 9, 10 tackles for loss, we're good. I'm fine with that. Like, you're doing that. You know, you hit the quarterback here and there on a blitz. Like, I know you're not going to be a big sack guy. That's fine. It's not your job. I don't expect you to be that. You need to be a run stuffer. I'll give you the perfect example of, in terms of against the run, who I want him to be, because this guy was much better against the pass. He's a better player. There's Derek Johnson. Like, yeah, Derek Johnson was fantastic at getting downhill. Now, again, he's a far better pass coverage linebacker than Bolton could ever dream of being. But when you look at Derek Johnson, his tackles for loss throughout his career, 7, 18, 6, 2, 8, 10, 12, 12, 8, 8, and then his last year in Kansas City, 5. Like, that's what I need out of you. I need you to be, he basically in Kansas City averaged 80 a year. You know, like, 18 that 1 year is outrageous. But, like, I need you to be a guy who you're giving me 8 to 10. I got to have 8 to 10. Right? the quarterback hits weren't huge with Derek Johnson. He had some years, you know, 2, 3. Come on, I can live with it. I don't care. I don't need you to be that guy. I need you to be a guy who is registering a ton of tackles and who is getting a lot of tackles for loss. And if you do that, I'm good. If you don't do that, I don't want to pay you.
I think that's really fair. I'm looking at the NFL contracts right now for inside linebackers. Roquan Smith tops that, according to AAV. He tops that market with $20 million per year. Fred Warner's $19.045. Tremaine Edmonds is $18. Patrick Queen is $13.6. And then there's a gap. There's a considerable gap between Patrick Queen at 4 and Demario Davis and C.J. Mosley tied for 5th at 8.6.
Yeah.
So I would anticipate you threw at the number 15, and I think that's probably pretty close to what it's going to be. AAV. That would probably slot in 4th overall. Is he better? We could probably have conversations with Bill in the face if he's better than Patrick Queen or Tremaine Edmonds about the value that he adds to the defense. Does that add to it? Patrick Queen did go to a new team this year, so that factors into some things, how he can be used usage-wise. And he's getting 13, almost 14 a year. So it's an interesting conversation to have. I do think that his value to the defense definitely is noted, but it is also worth noting that when he did go out with that wrist injury, Drew Tranquill slotted in, and it didn't really seem like the defense missed a beat.
I will say, though, to your point, I think you're right on. Like, Spags loves Nick Bolton like a child, like another child. Like, it's however many kids Spags has. I have no idea how many. Like,
add another.
Nick
one.
Bolton is like going to be in the family picture next year. Yeah, like he loves Nick Bolton. I can't remember if it was. It was on an interview. I can't remember where it was. I think it was with Peter Schrager, I believe. And Spags was saying how that call they made at the 2-minute warning with Trent McDuffie blitzing, he's like, I called it in, and Nick Bolton looked over and gave me like a thumbs up or shook his head yes, or like some affirmative like motion.
Yeah.
And Spags like, I knew the call was good because Nick Bolton was good with it. And at that point, like, they will pay any price to get Nick Bolton. And Spags he's talked a lot about that, how much he trusts Nick Bolton. And I sat down one-on-one with Nick Bolton last year at training camp, and I interviewed him and talked with him. And he said it took him a long time, like, to really get comfortable with calling the defense and making checks at the line, because he said it really, like, you know, it's such a defense that requires a lot of thought. You know, it's not just something you're going to roll out and, oh yeah, everything's good. You know, we got to make one check. I mean, there's so much that goes into that defense. It matters when you're trying to figure out who should be in the middle of it all, who should be making the calls, because it is so complicated. And I remember, you know, like I said, when I asked him about it, I just wanted to pull up the article real quick. When I asked him about it, he said it took a while for me to really trust my eyes. And he's like, this is his quote, that's one of the biggest things, helping get guys aligned, communicate, also be able to take those couple of seconds to visualize for yourself and get aligned, get your own mental checklist knocked down. Again, it feels like I'm still evolving in that aspect of it. I feel leadership and playing my position, being the quarterback of the defense, is always something you can improve on. Take it year by year, day by day, and try to find ways to get better. And I think it should be noted too with Bolton. His rookie year, he played on the outside. He didn't play in the middle because Hitchens did.
Right.
So, you know, there's also that. Like, he didn't play the same position he played his second year. Like, it's an interesting conversation, and I'm sure we'll have at some other point. We'll have to keep going into it. But I think they will extend him, for the record, and I think it'll be fine.
Yes.
But, yes, there are going to be Chiefs fans who are absolutely going to go just DEFCON 0 when it happens, and that'll be fun.
We're going to have both sides yelling at us in the comment section as per usual, but glad. Thanks for watching. But I do think I hear people screaming at me right now, but like you're talking about the two highest paid contracts on like the Chiefs defense being a defensive tackle and a linebacker. That value is not necessarily the best, but we've seen the Chiefs not necessarily adhere to traditional values when it comes to positional wise. And it's, seemed to work out. It seemed to work out okay for this team. But Matt, appreciate the time. I appreciate hanging out with us on that football show, an off-season, very, very, very off-season edition of that football show. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to go check out our friends at Holiday Distillery and Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon. You can go check out 360 Vodka, Husong's Tequila. Very good if you're into the tequila. I like that one very much so. They also have Tequila Rose. It's also really good. It's like a strawberry cream tequila. Wild. It's so good. Go check them out. Everything they do at Holiday Distillery is phenomenal. So for Matt Verderame, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will catch you guys next week. See you soon.